Well, good morning everybody, welcome back to my allotment. Just wanted to say a few words about this organic farm, not so much about the farm, about the way that we have to stay organic on the allotment, which I totally agree with, and I wouldn't do it any other way. I wouldn't really want to be on an allotment site where people are using chemicals, to be honest, but of course that does have its inherent problems, and those problems are the bugs, the pests, the viruses and so on, everything that wants to eat our fruit and vegetable, because of course it's pure and clean. And we have a problem on this site with just about everything I can think of. I've already mentioned clubroot in previous videos, and I'll talk about that more in a little minute, but it's a little bit sporadic on this site. Some beds have got it, some plots have got it, others haven't. I don't quite know how that works, but for those that haven't got it, I'm sure they're grateful. So clubroot is a real problem with the brassicas. Last year all my leeks got the pustules of rust on them. What else have we got? We've got blight on the potatoes, and if anyone tries to grow tomatoes here, which generally they don't because of the blight, although of course now you can get blight resistant tomato varieties, which I'm trying this year. Also last year, the first time I'd ever grown celery, I discovered there's a thing called celery blight, and I had that on all the later on in the year, towards the autumn, when the celery was really at its peak. It all came down with blight. Again, just like everything else, you can deal with it. You pick it a little bit early, or the bits that are affected, you pull them off and get rid of them. Nothing is a showstopper, but it does challenge you and make you think about how and where and when you grow things. The white fly and the black fly were both bad last year. Excuse me, I've got some notes. The cabbage white butterfly, everybody's got that. But if you and of course rabbits and badgers and things, that foxes that come onto the site, you see their spraints everywhere, so we know they're around. Rabbits are prolific here, so you have to deal with all that. And one of the ways I've dealt with it with the animals is to put chicken wire around every single bed. No chicken wire, no crop. Other people don't do that. Some of their crops are fine, others are decimated and disappear within a night. So we all deal with it in different ways. The way I'm dealing with the clubroot this year is very early, well in fact during the winter, I sent off to DT Brown's for their pack of clubroot resistant brassicas. And I'll just read those out now. So the broccoli I'm growing, or the calabrese this year, is Monclano. The green cabbage is Killerton. Red cabbage is Ladero. The Brussels sprouts are Crispus. And I've got a celery that's meant to be blight resistant called Octavius. So I'll share with you how I get on with those and whether or not, I mean it doesn't mean they won't get clubroot, but they are resistant to it. And we'll find out what that means as the season goes on. But what I do with all my brassicas is I grow them in cells in the greenhouse at home. They're moved into a proprietary compost which will not have clubroot spores in it. And when they are the biggest that I can manage, then they go into the ground. And I did that last year, towards the end of last year, with my overwintering cabbages. They've all gone to seed now, but I don't think that has anything to do necessarily with clubroot. And they're still, apart from the fact that they're bolting, they look absolutely fine. So I have every reason to be optimistic this year. The other thing about growing organic, which used to be called growing, is you have to alter your expectations. When you go to the supermarket and you look at the rows of beautiful fruits and vegetables, one of the main reasons they're beautiful is there's not a single mark or blemish on them. You pick up an apple in the supermarket and it's just as a child would draw it and colour it. It is perfect, and there's a really good reason for that. We all know that if you put something down on the ground on this planet, within days it's got algae, moss, anything growing on it, bugs are landing on it. But those apples in that supermarket have been growing for months and stored probably for up to a year, and nothing, not a bacteria, not a fly, nothing has touched it. Now if nothing else on this planet wants to eat it, why would you? So you know, that's a contentious issue. I have my own views, you'll have yours. But I'm fairly happy that when I pick stuff here, it's been nibbled, it's got blemishes, it's twisted, it's gnarled, it's lived. And I pick it and I eat it. And it means that when you take your cabbage home, you've got to be extra careful when you start to delayer it and wash it, because there will be slugs in it, and there will be maggots, and there will be other things. And you just have to change your expectation and live with that, and actually celebrate it. It's all about how you view things. If other things want to eat it, then it's good to eat. I just wish they wouldn't eat quite so much of it. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that, and we'll follow the resistant stuff and the tomato blight resistant through the year, and I'll talk about that more. Right, I've got some gardening to do. It's a very ominous sky. I got here, it was dark when I got here, and I've taken about 45 minutes to shuttle all my stuff across, which I'll show you in a moment. And it's not a very nice day, but it's dry so far. We've had a really miserable start to April. In February, one of the chaps here had his shirt off. It was 18 degrees. 2 months later, we're all shivering. The weather's peculiar, which is another part of allotmenteering that we all enjoy. Right, let's get some work done. Actually, before I start work here, I'm going to take you back to the greenhouse at home and just show you around how everything's developing. And then, slightly out of sync, but I brought some of it up here, and I'll go through that. So let's have a look at the greenhouse. My greenhouse, which I'm very keen on and spend a lot of time in, is a perfect example of the lesson in life that you should always buy the biggest and the best you can afford. This greenhouse is 6 foot by 6 foot, and I could do with one twice the size and I'd still fill it. But then that's the same with everyone, I suppose. All my clubroot resistant brassicas have been potted on and are looking very good. No slug damage to date, which is a good sign. Something I want to share with you is the parsnips. Those are parsnips. They were chitted, the seeds were chitted in the airing cupboard for a week in wet tissue paper, and at the end of 7 days they showed tiny little shoots where the seeds had broke out. Those little seeds, the ones that had germinated, were put into toilet roll inners with a bit of soil, put in very gently, and almost all of them have germinated. So I'm very keen on that method. Eventually, when they've filled the toilet rolls and are a bit more developed, I'll put them out up the allotment. But I'm very pleased with the way everything's going, despite the poor weather. I've had everything in here covered in fleece. It's only just come off today. But I am so tight for space. The peas which I'm growing in guttering are hanging on ropes off the struts on the ceiling or the roof. But they're doing fine. Yes, everything's growing on beautifully. And these are all the tomatoes, fastidiously labelled, because one tomato looks the same as another to me. Yeah, very good. More potting on to do. And there's the kohlrabi from the Kitchen Garden magazine sent me. Never grown kohlrabi, and it's all looking very good. Perhaps a little bit leggy now, so time to be potted on. So much to do. Right, let's go back to the allotment. This is a selection, not everything, but a selection of what I've brought up today. I've said before, it's a matter of shuttling and shifting things around to make space in the greenhouse, because the greenhouse is only small. So this stuff's coming up here today. The red onions are going in the ground, and they're going to have to work it out on their own. Last year in my little raised bed in the back garden, I had some raspberries. I've had them for several years, and they've not really thrived there. So I dug it all out, and I just had my raspberries up here. But we've had a few shoots come up, and they look good. So rather than just dig them out and throw them on the compost, I've brought them up here and they're going to go in the bed with other raspberries, and you know, we'll see what happens. But I've got spring onions, which I'm really pleased about. Never managed to grow successfully before, but looked at a few of the tips, Charles Dowding and Steve on Steve's Seaside Allotment. I mean, he's very successful with it all, as is Charles, and I've done it the way they suggested, in small batches, you know, multi-sown, and it's worked, and I'm really chuffed. What I have found is, because the sort of years regressed a bit, the weather's gone cold and damp and dark, the light levels are poor like they are today. Everything's stalled. Everything was really going well. These have all been potted on, and now everything's stopped, and nothing seems to be developing. I'm sure it'll be fine once the weather warms up, but it is a bit of a hiccup in the season so far. Here I've got the Waltham's butternut squash, which is something I'm growing that Kitchen Garden magazine sent me, and I've had really good germination with those. There we are. And these are courgette zucchini. Strange that, because zucchini is just a word for courgette that's used in America as far as I understand it, but they're called zucchini and they're doing fine. In fact, they're doing very well. So these are coming up here today. They're going to go in the cold frame. And the last one here is spinach matador, another one that I was sent by Kitchen Garden magazine. I'm very keen to grow spinach, and as I understand it, when it heats up during the summer it bolts very easily, but in the colder, more temperate part of the year, then you should get a good crop, and they're doing well so far, and I've got more on the way in the greenhouse. So let's get these in the cold frame. Well, I'm going to try growing some carrots in these tubs. You saw me saw them in half in a previous episode. I've cleaned them out, and this is, you know, all shop bought compost with a bit of horticultural sand mixed in to give the carrots a relatively free root run, and we'll see how we get on. I mean, I hope they don't bake in the summer. It's hard to believe they would at this time of year, but that is a risk, so we shall see. I watched something from a US farm, or homesteader I think they're called, and she covered her carrots over for a week, put them in the dark, and that does two things. First of all, the darkness promotes germination, and because they were covered with a plank, it prevents the rain from forming a hard crust on the surface so that the carrots can't break through. And I've tried that. I tried it last year in my garden, in my raised bed, and it was very successful. So I'm going to try it here, and we shall see how we get on. I mean, I've put way too many in there, but I'll thin them out. I've never seen them get carrot root fly. Is it carrot? Yeah, carrot root fly, but we've got everything else, so I imagine we'll get that, so I'll put some fleece over this if and when they germinate, and we'll see how they get on. If it doesn't work, I shall try again. I've never had a lot of success. I had no success with carrots until I saw this off the homesteader lady, which was a wonderful tip. That's the beauty of YouTube. Some stuff is not what you'd want to do, and some stuff is an absolute gem like that one. So we shall see. I think that's damp enough. So the theory is I'm now going to cover that, exclude the light, exclude the rain, and we'll see how they go. In a week's time exactly, I will take off this, and then another week from then, hopefully, I'll see some carrot seeds popping up. We shall see. Ever hopeful. Right, got one more to do. I'll crack on and do this, and then we'll move on to something else. Okay, that's the carrot seeds in. It's a little bit Heath Robinson, I know, but all I've got to do is try and exclude the light, and we shall see what happens. It's the wonderful thing about allotmenting. Every time you put something in the ground, it's a declaration of optimism. And I'm not normally an optimist, so this is a real change for me. So we'll see what happens. I'm rather excited by that. Carrots. Or maybe not. Right. Cup of tea. Oh. Interestingly, of the first early swift potatoes that are put in these 5 tubs, 3 of the tubs here have had that glass panel over them, and the potatoes are showing through. The 2 that didn't have the glass panel, nothing up. So even a glass panel put across the top, not sealed, has made enough difference to those black tubs that the potatoes are growing quicker.
Please raise whether Andy and Kate the first half.
It's okay, because when it gets to that point, everyone's going to be concentrating on them and looking at them and what they're doing. Oh, look, they're so sweet. So they're not really going to be listening.
I hope not.
It's going to be that
Is
first.
that song that you was normally fast? That's it. Yes.
The girls brought me for Mother's Day